Great, thanks, Anwar. I appreciate that introduction. David wants me to go first, I believe. Is that right, David?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, David, for having me here. So my role here is essentially I really just want to teach you three practical things, or talk about three practical things that will help your practice from a technology perspective, and then that'll be my time. So I'm just going to start my timer here. I think I've got about 45 minutes with you. So highly practical. Like I said, I'm going to show you I'm going to show you the three things in the 45 minutes. Thank you, Anwar, for the warm introduction. You can see this. You can see this document here, and
Yes.
yeah, lovely. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through three things. So if you have Microsoft Office installed on your computer, and if you routinely use it to draft documents, or Microsoft Outlook to draft emails or anything like that, I'm going to show you a technique that you can use from now on. I use it every day. I use it all the time. So this is not a trick question. I see everybody's got their videos off. I was kind of hoping that people could kind of give a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but how many do you see typos in this document, and if so, how many do you see? So just take a look. It's not a trick question. There are typos in this thing. My point in showing you this document is that it looks relatively innocent enough. I'll put a Z up here to show you that the Microsoft spell check feature is indeed functioning, and yet this document has some typos in it. So what are the typos? Well, instead of reading through manually to try to locate the typos, I'm going to use this little feature up here which says speak selected text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the control button. I'm going to press A, that selects all the text, or I can just do it with my mouse. And then I'll play it here through my computer speakers, and you should be able to hear what this sounds like. So give this a listen.
Good afternoon, Mr. Singh.
Let me know if you can hear that.
We understand that you client was the store manager at the time of the incident. We confirm that we represent the store employees and are instructed to deliver the attached letter on their behalf. I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, so hopefully you heard that. Essentially what happened is, in the computer voice, it read out, "Good afternoon, Mr. Singh. We understand that you, client, was the store manager at the time of the incident. We confirm that..." So those are the three typos. So my point in showing you this is by highlighting the text and using this feature, which is already part of Microsoft Office. It's already in Word, it's in Outlook, it's in PowerPoint, it's in Excel. It's basically in all of your Microsoft software already. It's a really powerful way to detect typos. It's also a really great way to detect redundancy. So if I was writing a document that was 3 paragraphs long, in the first paragraph I'm talking about damages, in the third paragraph I'm talking about damages. By listening to the text out in this way, essentially it gives you a different way to interact with the information, and you may actually be able to take what's in the first paragraph and what's in the third paragraph, combine them, make for a shorter, more concise document. So this definitely is a kind of technique that is kind of better seen, or sorry, better experienced maybe than seen. So I really invite you to test it out. If you don't see this command up here, which you probably don't, because it doesn't come standard, you have to click here. You have to go to more commands. Basically, you have to enable it. If you need any help enabling it, just let me know and I can help you do that. But essentially, this is a technique that I use every day for every message that I ever send to anyone when I care about what they think. I want to send an email that doesn't have any typos. I want to produce a document to opposing counsel that sounds great and doesn't have any typos. Court documents, I don't want there to be typos. But also, in addition to catching typos, by hearing the document being read back to you, you kind of experience it in the way that a reader would experience it if they were looking at it for the first time, because you hear it kind of read out word by word in a nice even pace, and then you can hear it back and say, oh, I'm going to change that part. Maybe that was a bit too sharp, or maybe I'm going to change that part because it's not quite precise enough, or I'm going to change that part because it's superfluous, whatever. So using this text-to-speech software is something that I think that people should really be doing more of. I use it every day. It's fantastic. And when I use it on a document, let's say I've written a 2-page letter, if I use this software to have the document be read back to me and I don't detect any errors, I'm done. I'm not, not only errors. If I don't detect anything about it that I want to change, I'm good. Like, I've got the seal of approval because I know that I've done everything that I needed to do. Time is money, and now I can move on and do something else. And I'm happy when the letter goes out the door because I really know that I really, went over it with a fine-tooth comb. So I'll leave it at that for this particular technique. Are there any questions about it before I move on?
I've used it and it works great.
Thanks, David.
Thanks to Sean.
Thanks, David. Okay, so I think that took me about 6 minutes to explain. So I'm going to move on to another technique. So these documents are from a client of mine in Ontario, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through them. They are basically documents to incorporate a company. So let's say she has a client that is going to be incorporating as ABC 123 Corp. So I'm just going to copy this text. I just held Shift, highlighted it, Control-C to copy it. I'm going to close the document, save. I'm going to open the next document. And I'm going to do this in the traditional way where I'm going to, oh, this isn't the right document. Essentially, all of these places with the underline, ABC 123 Corp, period. I'm going to have to change it there. I'm going to have to come in here. ABC 123 Corp, etc., etc., etc. So I won't walk through every single document, but essentially, if I were to be drafting these documents, and of course I'd have to change other things. I'll have to change, the name of the shareholder, or the share class, or what have you. I would be stepping through these documents one by one and making the changes that are needed as is appropriate. There is specialty document drafting software. DivorceMate is a popular one that does this kind of stuff. eConvey, has a similar kind of document production feature with respect to real estate files. But there's a lot of practice areas where a person maybe just does a few of them, or like a few incorporations a year, or they do wills and powers of attorney and representation agreements, but it doesn't make up a big part of their practice, so it doesn't really justify getting specialty software, and the specialty software may be kind of prohibitively expensive. So what you do, or what I do, instead of having, as we did here, these 12 documents, I combine them into a single document. You'll see when we open up here. Actually, I took out the bylaws or the share certificates. So for some reason, there's 2 more documents in this version than the other version. So what I do is, instead of having them as individual documents, as we saw here, which are in a file folder, we have a single Word document with the documents here on the side as sections. So the power of having a document like this, a single document, as opposed to having multiple Word files in a folder, is you only have to open the document once and you're in there. Doesn't save a lot of time to open and close the document, but it adds up when you're doing it over and over and over again. So within the one document, we can click around on these sections if we need to jump to the specimen share certificate. There it is. If we need to jump to the bylaws, number 2, there it is. Resolution of the directors of the company, there it is. But the real power in putting all of these documents together, well, a very powerful feature of putting these documents all together like this, is that we can run a search whereby, or not a search, well, yes, we can do a search. I don't know, shareholder. So I just search for the word shareholder. Oof, it's gonna come up a lot. I forget what a good word is to choose in here that isn't going to come up with so many hits. But as you can see, it searches through the whole document. And if I was looking for I don't know, dividends might be a good word, or dividend. How's dividend? Okay, dividend is 13 results. They're only in the first bylaw, but. In any event, searching is much easier within a single document because it'll show you where the term is appearing in the document and on what page, as opposed to, again, if they were in individual Word files and if I was searching for dividends, I'd have to do a word search I'd have to search for the term from the operating system and then go into the individual documents. So this is quite a bit faster. But what is more useful than this is this. So, or what's more useful than just being able to find documents is this function. So here in the previous document, I had it highlighted where it said company name. And essentially what a person would need to do with a traditional method is you'd have to step through all the documents, you'd have to replace the company name, you'd have to replace the name of the shareholder or the incorporator or whomever, you'd have to change out all of these fields. And if you don't do corporate law, imagine that you're doing this for a will. You'd have to change the name of the testator, and then you'd have to change the name of the executor, and you'd make all these routine changes. So what we're going to do instead of going to them one by one is you go up here to File, Info, Properties, Advanced Properties, Custom, and then here is this field, Company Name. So if I change the name from company name to ABC123 Corp, period, I'm going to click Modify, OK. I'm going to go back to the document. So I'm going to hold Shift, press A, I press F9 to update the document, and voila, all of the places where it previously was just a blank where the company name went, it now says the name of the company, ABC123 Corp, ABC123 Corp. It's everywhere. It's on the share certificate, ABC123 Corp. So if you multiply this by all of the other different fields that you're going to be needing to enter, like the name of the director, like the address of the registered and records office, like the share class, like the number of shares, et cetera, you can basically take a collection of documents in this format where you've got multiple Word documents. You put them all in one document, and when you make a change in one place, you can make the change throughout the entire document. So that is something that I've started to do more and more for lawyers who are finding that they need more power out of their precedents, but they don't want to buy another piece of software. They don't want to pay per user. They don't want to pay per file. They just kind of want a one and done solution. So this is a solution that is very powerful. Instead of having all of these different documents, you just have one document for practice area. So you'd have your Omniform for your incorporation files, your Omniform for your estate and capacity planning, so on and so forth. Whatever you need it for, wherever you've got a gap where, like if you use eConvey and you don't need it for that, great. Don't worry about that. You're covered. You've already got that happening, right? But if you've got some gaps and you need something a little bit more powerful, this is where this can really come in handy. Yeah, are there any questions about that? Okay, great. So the final thing that I was prepared to talk about, though I'll add something in, I suppose, is password keeper software. So you may have seen on the news recently that there have been, well, I guess a person could just take their pick, but there's data breaches going on and cybersecurity issues, almost constantly now. I don't even know which one in recent memory is the worst one. The hospital system on the East Coast was awful. The one that occurred in the United States with respect to what was that, petroleum or natural gas production, that was terrible. And anyways, so on and so forth. And it's essentially becoming quite a serious issue because the numbers are just going up. More hack attacks are getting through, and a lot of people don't know what to do about it. So I'm trying my best to help people out, especially the legal community in particular. So one very powerful tool to help prevent cyber threats from succeeding and turning into actual breaches or incidents is using a password keeper. So a password keeper is essentially a piece of software that keeps all of your passwords in one place. To open the password keeper, there's different ways that you configure it, but typically what you do is you open it using what's called a master password. As the name suggests, the master password is an important password. Theoretically, if you made a password keeper database and you put all your passwords in there and then you forgot your master password, you'd have a big problem on your hands. So that's probably the biggest downside of using a password keeper. But with that out of the way, I'll discuss the upsides. So I use a piece of free software called KeePass. As far as I can tell, it's made by good actors who care about producing good software. Even the creators wouldn't necessarily be able to, hack into these databases because these databases use encryption technology that is dependent on knowing the master password. So what I have here, I'm not sure if you're seeing. Hopefully you see the whole screen. You might see the people in this chat kind of on top of these icons. Actually, here I'll just change the size. Large. Okay, so you've got these two databases. One's called Don's Passwords Office. One's called Don's Passwords Personal. So imagine that you are, well, this is probably easy for most of you because it's probably true. Imagine that you are a lawyer that works at a law firm, and some of your passwords are things that are personal to you, such as your Netflix account and your primary bank account and your email address that you've had for the past 20 years, your personal email address, and so on and so forth. And then imagine that you also have passwords that are office-based, things that you're happy to have shared with your staff and with your assistants, BC Online, court services online, any number of passwords that are office passwords. They're still important passwords and you still want to keep them secure, but they are office passwords. So with a piece of software like KeePass, I'm going to open it here. I'm going to launch this. So I double click on this file, which is a database file. So here it comes. So it says enter master key. So I'm going to put in a master key. This is actually the master key that I use for my own databases, so I'm not going to tell you what it is. It doesn't show up. It just shows up as black dots. That is very helpful because if you ever have a person that's helping you with your IT, if they're standing behind you, or even if they're logging in and we're on a presentation like we're on now, you still can't see my password because you just see these black dots. So I press enter. Now I'm in my database. This is the personal one. So essentially I've just got some sample entries in here. I don't actually have my real data in here. Nothing about this is real. Let's use, I don't know, Sean Dillman test123@gmail.com. So this is an entry. Each one of these keys represents an entry that you've put in. My current number of passwords in my password keeper is 150. I don't use them all every day. Some of them I rarely use. Some of them I may never use again. But a lot of them are passwords that I use all the time. Different email passwords, different banking account information, things like that. So in the password keeper, each one of these keys represents an entry. So in this database, I just have 5. I don't have 150, but you can just add as you need. So I'm going to go down here to edit entry, just to open it up, just so that you see what it looks like. So the title of the entry is what is it? And actually, what I should have it say this. It's a personal Gmail account. What's the username? SeanDillmanTest123@gmail.com. What's the password? Well, when I made this entry, it auto-generated a password, which I can use, which is very strong. You can kind of see here from this, this little, call it a spectrum, that it's kind of up in the green. It can either generate a password for you, or if you already have your own password. So let's say I knew that my password for this was, Apple hat 123. 123 exclamation point, then that's what the password is. And I'm going to tell the password keeper what my password is. So I hit enter to save that entry. So to use the password keeper, essentially what you would do is you would go to your Gmail account on a browser as you've done, or an email, a normal email account, and then you would paste in your username from the password keeper, and then you double click here on the password section, and then I can paste that in. Apple hat 123 exclamation mark. If you look here on the bottom right hand part of the screen, you'll see there's actually a little green progress bar that's ticking down. I'll do it again. So that little green progress bar is actually the amount of time that the password is being held in your clipboard. And the reason that it ticks down is once that time elapses, paste, paste, paste. I'm holding control, I'm pressing paste. It doesn't give me the option to paste. it took it out of my clipboard, just to be really careful and just to show you that the whole idea of using a password with a password keeper is that you go to the place that you need to use it. You go to TD's website. Like this is a perfect example. You go to TD's website, you use your bank card to put in your number. You don't put your bank card number in your password keeper. You could if you want to, but given the highly sensitive nature of a bank account, I don't typically put the account number with the password. Even in a password keeper, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. But essentially, you would go to the TD website, you would type in your card number, you would double click this, and then you can paste it into the TD website, and then you can get access. Once you're in the TD website and doing whatever you need to do, and once you hit log out, you're going to close that window. By the time you do that, you see this progress meter. Your password is also going to be cleared out of your clipboard, which is a good thing. So moving to the other option. So this is a personal. This is my personal database. So let's say I want to look at the other side, the business side, the firm side. So again, I go into I just double click on the file, I just open it. I open it just like I would open any other password, and there you go. So this is my Office version. Again, these are just random sampling. This is not all of the passwords that a person would have, but here's a land title office, here's a password. I didn't fill in the username, but that would be your username, court services online, etc. So the beauty of this is that with your staff, what you can do is you can share the master password with them. Don't use the same master password for both, because then they would, your staff would know potentially the password to your personal database. And that's assuming that they could get access to it and open it, which, ideally they wouldn't or they couldn't. But in any event, it's not safe. Don't use the same password for both your personal and your business password keeper. But for your business password keeper, you know the password, your staff knows the password. It's actually kind of, you could think of it like your calendar, how you give people in your firm access to your calendar so they can add things for you, they can take things out for you, they can move meetings for you. This is a similar thing where you're keeping passwords in a common place. And you can do it as creatively as you want. Like if you have a strong relationship where, you and a particular assistant do the majority of your work together, then that database file may just be used between the two of you. Alternately, if you work in a firm where you have a department, say, that does, I don't know, estate administration. Let's say you had three assistants that did estate administration work in your office. You could make an estate administration database, a password database that would be used by those three. Of course, you would have the password, or the managing partner of the firm, or the manager of the firm, or whoever. The right people are also going to have the master password, but people can share passwords more easily in this way. I suppose I should have noted at the onset that the traditional method of keeping all of your passwords just in a notepad file somewhere, or in a WordPad, or written down, it's just not secure, because if a breach can succeed on in your office, and if people get access to your files, a hacker, in the blink of an eye, is going to be able to find a file, even if you hid it somewhere in a directory system or something. Hackers are going to be able to search for, PASS or PW or, user or whatever, or presumably they even have tools that search for things that look like passwords. So hackers are going to be able to locate that if they're able to compromise your systems. If you're using a password keeper, if they breach your systems and they come across the database file for your password keeper, they're not going to be able to get in without the master password. There's actually a very interesting website, How Long to Hack website. There's actually a website which will tell you how long it takes to hack a password. So I'm not going to ask anybody here to tell me any of their passwords, but let's say it was that password I mentioned before. I don't remember what it was. Cat, hat, 123, exclamation mark. 23 years. Okay, not bad, but we could make it a little bit more secure and put it out of the ballpark. So there, I just added the number 7. So cat, hat, 123, exclamation mark 7 would take, at current technology, current processing speeds and current techniques, approximately 1,627 years, 28 years if you round up. So that would be a great password because by the time hackers could hack that password, you'd be long gone. You probably wouldn't be worried about it anymore. So yeah, password keepers I think are rapidly becoming something that needs to be used more. People are asking me more about it all the time. I'm not. I think with media attention and with more concerns about cybersecurity, that it's kind of bringing it more to the forefront. But I did a session with a firm out of Toronto last week, and right at the beginning, I said, before I get into my prepared, content, is there anything that anybody would want to ask? And the first thing a lawyer said, I've got passwords coming out my ears. What do I do with these things? And I said, that's a great question, right? Because it's hard. You shouldn't just keep them in a notepad file. You shouldn't keep them in a WordPad file, a OneNote file. You shouldn't keep them just written down. Password keepers are the best bet. The worst thing that could happen is if you lose your master password, you're going to be in trouble. The best way to combat against that is to actually maybe write it down and keep it somewhere safe. If you have a vault or a locked drawer or a safety deposit box, you could also kind of put it somewhere that's, in addition to the password being secret, you could kind of put it somewhere that's secret. You could put it, in like a little, I don't know, a box that came with a piece of jewelry or something. You could have it, written in blue, and then have a bunch of other text that's, written in red or black or something. So it just looks like a messy page and a person doesn't really understand what they're looking at. There's all kinds of creative techniques that a person can use to come up with a password. So I'll leave that with you. But essentially, when you produce your master password, you want it to be very powerful, and you can use websites to check how powerful it is. You don't want your password to just be, I don't know, hello. That's not a very strong password, right? We all know nowadays that, strong passwords are, they have mixed characters, capital H, ELLO, 1, 2, 3, numbers are involved, special characters, $, @ symbol. Even that password that I just said off the top of my head is probably pretty secure. But yeah, so as far as options for password keepers, there's all kinds of options. There's free ones, there's paid ones. One of the more popular ones is called LastPass. It is an online-based password keeper. If you're using Microsoft Office, Office 365, if you're using their cloud solutions, which I know that a lot of lawyers are using because Microsoft will guarantee that the data stays in Canada. If you're using Microsoft Office 365, a really great technique, and this is what I do, is I just keep my LastPass or KeePass, pardon me, KeePass is the name of the software. I keep my KeePass database in a folder that is synced to the cloud, and then that way I can also access it on my smartphone, because often there's a lot of accounts that you need to get into and it's actually kind of more of a phone thing than a computer thing. If you kind of understand what I mean. That some things are for online. Perfect example. I can't use my computer to take a picture of a check to deposit it to my bank account. But I can do that with my smartphone because it's got a camera on it, right? So sometimes you need to log into the app. When you need to log into the app, the great thing about KeePass or LastPass is you can also log in through your phone and it's going to work just the same. As far as security goes, I think that it's quite secure for a number of reasons. Reason number one, Microsoft is, highly reputable. They spend a lot of money on their security. They're not going to cover you if you make a mistake and if you fall for a phishing scam or if you get hacked because of something that you've done. But Microsoft does their part in making sure that their systems are secure. So I don't worry about that. I don't worry about my Microsoft account getting hacked. Even if it did get hacked, they still need to get through. As I mentioned, they still need to know what my master password is to break into my password vault. If they don't know that password, they're not going to waste their time, because if it takes 1,000 years, or potentially, because they don't know how long the password is, they don't know what the password is at all. That's the whole point. If they're not able to get the password within a reasonable period of time by just trying all of the easiest, simplest stuff, forget it, right? They should probably at that point be moving on to bigger targets than me, or maybe people who are less tech savvy or something, So anyway, so I think it's secure. I don't have a problem with that, and that's what I do personally. I think that that's everything that I was wanting to say about Password Keeper software. I'll ask again, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? All right. As Anwar mentioned at the onset, I have a course. It's accredited with the BC Law Society, State Bar of Texas, Law Society of Ontario. It is a 2-hour course. The first hour is on hardware. The second hour is on software. And I'm also doing in-firm, well, video, Zoom like this presentations. So I recently did one here for this firm, Ricketts Harris out of Toronto. It was a 2-day event. I won't show you the videos, but essentially day one, this video is the first hour recording of our Zoom call, and then this day 2 is the second day of the video, so that these gentlemen, they didn't need to take notes, and they can go back into the videos whenever they need, and they can watch. So essentially the value that they're getting is they're getting a 2-day event where it was live. We actually had a lot of conversation. They, when I was going over my prepared materials, I would stop and say, it's a scanner. I held up my scanner that I have, and I said, Scan, Snap, Scanner, do you have these? And they said, yes, we already have a ton of those. We use them all the time. I said, great. We're going to move on. I'm not going to waste my breath telling you about something you already know or you already use, right? So doing it live and doing it with people in the firm is a very helpful thing, because people can air their concerns and they can tell me, what they actually want to know about. As I mentioned, actually, it was Martin here. He was the one who said, tell me about password management software. I want to know more about that. So people are finding it to be, I've got another one booked for December. I think with the CPD crunch, as was mentioned, somebody mentioned it earlier, with the upcoming deadline to get CPD credits in, I expect that has something to do with the sudden interest in a little bit more technology training. But it's important stuff. All of the stuff that I teach about, this is the front of my website. All of the stuff that I teach about is related to these 5 bullets. I want to produce higher quality. I want you to be able to produce higher quality work, avoid typos, get more control over your email. Be able to work anywhere you want, whenever you want, more fluidly. Be more easily able to detect scams, avoid getting hacked, and increase your productivity, reduce burnout, make more money, really. So that's what the course is about, and that's what I'm about. The other venture that I mentioned, if you're interested, is called Omniform. The website is omniform.org. There is a 12-minute video, 13-minute, pardon me, which explains the process that I was just showing. This video basically walks through what I was saying, but it kind of shows it. Oh, right, I did it with a stopwatch. Essentially, I showed that the Omniform method is basically 6 times or potentially 6 times faster than a traditional method. So, you can do the math. If you could do, if you could do, an incorporation, in an hour, but in the same hour you could do 6. Well, maybe if you charge $1,000 to incorporate a company, maybe instead of making $1,000, maybe you can make $6,000. I appreciate that that's a relatively simplistic example, but nonetheless. Oh, I see there's something in the chat. Where do you get the Password Keeper? Thank you very much for the comment, Forrest. The Password Keeper that I use is KeePass. KeePass. So KeePass. This is the one. I kind of like when things have this cutesy old 90s kind of look, because to me it means that it's a little bit more developed by people that are kind of, I don't know, like old school, developers, like people who actually are just interested in security and interested in, good computing and good techniques. So you come to the website here, KeePass, and then downloads. And you can just download now. I always make sure they come up with updates. I always make sure to get the update. If you really want, if you really don't want to take my word for it, and from a legal perspective, I would prefer if you didn't. But meaning, if you come to this KeePass, this Wikipedia page about KeePass, it'll tell you everything about KeePass. How it was developed, what technology they use, who developed it, why they developed it. It's the kind of thing that I think for most of us, if I go to my mechanic and they say, we're going to put, this kind of oil in your car, I just say, yes, fine. I don't want to know about the viscosity. Me personally, I don't care about the viscosity. I don't care about the, the temperatures that it can handle. I don't care about the performance. I just want my car to work. So, as lawyers, I can appreciate that often we're so busy that, you don't really care so much about all of that. You just want to know that it's reliable and that it works. I think that KeePass is reliable. I think that it works. I think that it is a far superior technique to simply having them all written down in a notepad file or a Word file. Actually, a bit of insight. Back in March of this year, I attended the American Bar Association Tech Show. It was how long was that? It was an all-week event. I think it was like 4 days. So I attended as much as I possibly could, watching all of these sessions, and there was an American security specialist on there, and the number one thing that she said is, if you leave this, this tech show, and you don't learn anything but this, then you've succeeded. And the thing to learn is, don't keep your passwords in a notepad file. Don't keep your passwords in a Word file. Use password keeper software. So, for me, it was only in March that I audited, my systems and actually changed. I was using a different password keeper, and I think KeePass is a much better way to go. But, I kind of echo her words and say, if you were only to do one thing, and there's so much stuff that a person can do with tech. You could take your office and you could transform it. If some firms I know are really on the cutting edge with a lot of stuff, and everybody's at different levels, right? But password keepers are so important, and the cybersecurity element is so important because you get hacked, you get taken down, and you got a big problem on your hands, right? You got to deal with the law society, you got to report it, you got to deal with the client, they're upset. Monetarily, if they're holding all your files ransom, that's awful, right? There's any number of problems, and password keeper, a password keeper is merely one piece of the potential, puzzle. You need to be able to fight against phishing attacks. You need kind of vigilance, and you need knowledge about that. You need virus scans, you need spam filters, you need policies in place. Dark web monitoring is something that's starting to become more popular. And if you're interested in those kind of tools or those layers, you can talk to me about them in the future. You can get in touch with me. Anyway, I don't want to go on and on about the password keeper, but it's they're extremely useful pieces of equipment or technology, call it what you will. So I see that I've got a few minutes left. I might just leave it on this website. If you want to contact me about anything that I've talked about, anything tech related, please do. Give me a call, send me an email, contact me on social media, whatever you'd want to do if you need any help with any of this stuff.
Hey everyone, that's real good stuff, Sean. You've convinced me. I'm going to change my password from happy123 to happy1234. Please don't anyone tell them I'm going to do that.